The power grab in Sudan follows its course in an effort to restore peace in the crisis-hit country. Ousted former Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has refused to accept defeat as he insists for his dissolved government to be reinstated. Coup orchestrators led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan received warning statements from the African Union and the United Nations since the military takeover on October 25, urging for a return to civilian rule and a respect of transitional decisions. The overthrow of former Sudanese Prime Minister Omar al-Bashir in April 2019 left a bleak and uncertain atmosphere. Though it was a jubilant moment for Sudan and anti-Bashir protesters, uncertainty still lingers as to what the fate of the country would be. Today's unfoldments, characterized by a military takeover and the detention of transitional Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and co., indicate that a smooth path was not defined for Sudan, hard hit by an economic downturn. The upcoming states, political squabbles that marked Sudan's joint military-civilian coalition questioned the transition leaders' resolve in solving problems faced by Sudanese. October 25, 2021, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan championed a coup d'etat, defining another uncertain future for Sudan. It has been turbulent in Khartoum and elsewhere in the country, with casualties and deaths already recorded. The African Union, the USA and other international bodies have decried the coup, urging General Burhan to reinstate civilian rule. The departure of Omar al-Bashir was expected to usher in a new era of change and democracy. The people, ruled 65 years ago by the military, rebuke General al-Burhan's actions and demand that power be handed back to the people. Is Hamdok determined to rightfully reclaim what is his? What can we therefore write of the current state of affairs in Sudan? Is there hope for a return to civilian rule in the shortest possible time? Is the military serious about democracy? And is it an end or start to a new revolution in Sudan? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Views on the Continent.
Good day and good day to all the viewers of African Media. Thank you, African Media. Thank you for what you are doing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining me for the second weekly delivery of Views on the Continent on Deep and African Television, Afrique Media. Tensions erupted since October 25 in Khartoum, Sudan, after a military takeover led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who ousted the transitional government after, which was instated after Omar al-Bashir's demise. Now, Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok is demanding for a reinstatement of his government, which he believes is going to pave the way for a solution to the crisis in the country. So far, reports from Sudan are coming in with disturbing news confirming that a lot of people have been injured in clashes between civilians and the military, and as well some people have lost their lives while claiming for a return to civilian rule. On today's edition of the program, we are definitely analyzing the takeover in Sudan, the military takeover in Sudan, and the call by international organizations, the African Union, the United Nations, for civilian rule to be reinstated in the country. Now, we are equally questioning if ousted Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok is determined in his resolve for his government or his cabinet, whose whereabouts now is uncertain, to be reinstated in the country and for power to be given back to the people. We are definitely going to be receiving your views on today's edition of the program. You can participate by dialing the numbers that appear on your screen, or rather leave us a message on our Facebook live page. From our newsroom, Agnes Temga was able to put forth this report for Views on the Continent, analyzing the situation in Sudan after the military takeover, and definitely questioning a lot of unanswered questions about Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok's call for a reinstated government. Take a listen and stay with us for part 2 of the program.
Sudan's army and politicians seem to have edged closer to a new power-sharing deal as international efforts intensify to reverse last week's coup. Negotiation between coup leader Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, former rebel groups, and removed Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok continued on Tuesday, November the 2nd, in the capital Khartoum. Hamdok said early on Monday, November the 1st, that a reinstatement of his government, dissolved in the military coup, could pave the way to a solution in the country as international mediation progressed to end the political crisis. He made statement while speaking during a meeting at his home, where he is under effective house arrest with ambassadors of United States, Britain and Norway, the ministry which remains loyal to the Prime Minister. The ousted Prime Minister further insisted on the legitimacy of his government and transitional institutions as he demanded that the situation in Sudan return to what it was before the coup, refusing to negotiate with the military rulers. The U.S. Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa, Jeffrey Feltman, said after his arrival in the country on Tuesday that the military knows support for Sudan's economic development and debt relief, as well as the World Bank and International Monetary Fund financing, deepen on restoring the democratic path. Global condemnation following the October 25th coup was swift, with the US and the World Bank cutting aid to pressure the military into releasing Hamdok and his detainee colleague. The UN Security Council urged the military on October 28 to relinquish power and restore the civilian-led transitional government. Clashes that have broken out between soldiers and protesting civilians following the coup have killed several people and left over 100 others injured and arrested, according to data released by the country's health ministry. A Sudanese lawyer representing the detained civilian leaders said on Monday their whereabouts is unknown, ringing alarm on the dangerous legal situation in which they are. He expressed concern about the well-being of the detainees, as very little is known about the whereabouts of Hamdok's cabinet and the members of the council that had been tasked with paving the way to full civilian government. Burhan had since August 2019 chaired the council, working alongside Hamdok's government under a power-sharing deal that outlined the post-Bashir transition. The arrangement came under strain, however, as split deepened between the civilians and the military. Mediation efforts in Sudan and abroad have meanwhile been on the way to find a possible solution for the country. Although there has been progress, key differences are said to remain and an outcome is not guaranteed. The contours of a package might become visible in the coming days.
Report, ladies and gentlemen, we are analyzing the coup in Sudan after military takeover led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and equally a call from ousted Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok for his government to be reinstated. On today's program, we are receiving Mr. Atene Bako. He's always here to help us with the analysis. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, sir.
Thank you very much, and special greetings to all the viewers of Afrique Media. Thank you for this.
It's always a pleasure to have you in the house. Now, we are facing another coup in Africa. After Guinea, Sudan is next, and this is the second coup in less than 2 years. After Omar al-Bashir was ousted from power in 2019, we are experiencing another coup d'etat that led the people of Sudan in shams for 65 years before independence. What has been your analysis of these happenings in Sudan?
Well, you see, Sudan, in as much as all the other African nations from Ethiopia, Central Africa, Mozambique, Congo, DRC, Cameroon, Chad, Libya, name them, is just the same old stories in Africa. And there's nothing strange about why these coups and these insecurities, the agitations and bad leadership in Africa. That's our struggle that we are trying to conduct to see how we can unite our people, the masses, give them an understanding so that they are able to see their responsibility, their role and their duty as citizens of Africa, that they must play a vital role in building government that are able to reflect the demands of the people and reflect the demands of their own society, meet the demands and to improve the life standard of their people so that the Africans can find a future in their own country. This is very important because when Africa has become today whereby it only offers rooms for multinationals, it offers rooms for people who have already made success, and people who are still growing, they do not have opportunity. Rather, they are finding ways to run out of Africa, either through the desert or through the sea or by flight, because Africa does not give room for its own citizens or its own young generation to find opportunities where they can exploit and find be able to establish themselves in their own country. And that's why we always have the multinationals, we have leadership, small economies always mingling into the hands of the very people who are already swimming in wealth. And these are the very challenges that we are facing as well in Mali. Looking at the population of Mali, like I've been citing, about 60%, about 41% of its population is below 15 years. That's a very huge amount. And between 15 to 25 years, it's about 25%. Between 25 years to 55 years is 15%. And 55 above is 3.3%. And these are the 3.3% that we are struggling with in the entire Africa, with bad leadership. This simply means that the majority have not been able to assume their responsibility and their role, because you cannot expect a government that you do not put in place, a government which did not design, you are not the architect of those governments, and you expect such government to reflect and to build your life. It's very challenging. And even when we have few leaders that comes up in Africa, because of the system set in place, it gives room for division, opposition, even when somebody is struggling to do the right thing. And I think that Africa really has to rethink its relationship with the West as far as our leadership is concerned, because, I mean, Hamdok cannot be addressing the United States, Norway, and Britain over what is happening in Sudan. Where are the African organizations? Where are the African body? Where are the Africans in the diaspora? Who are Africans supposed to consult? Africans were supposed to consult Africans in seeing how they can manage and resolve their own internal issues. These are home problems, whether they were brought in by the imperialists, but we need to find means and solutions of resolving it within our own context of African, how will I call it, our own way. But if we give open doors where there's a problem in Sudan, and then there's a huge wide door that is open for Britain to say something before Sudan can assume that somebody has said something, for America to speak before they assume that somebody has spoken, for Norway. So this is the case that we are saying that, you see, after the early 60s and the late 60s, where we had people like P.L. Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Gaddafi, and many others like, who stood up to defend their people and showed how Africa was self-sufficient right up to Magufuli. The West is building a system, which this is the same system we have been complaining, that does not give room for people like Sankara to rise anymore in Africa. This point is very important, because as long in the days of Sankara, when Sankara took over power, nobody called for elections. There was no election. In the days of Gaddafi, when he took over power, nobody called for elections. And we realized that they did well because they were dictators that knew what their people needed and gave to their nation their very best, so that the life standard of their people could live up and meet up with the rest of the world, I mean, judging at the resources of their land. And this is very important. But today, when a coup takes place, you get all pressure. Sanctions from the United Nations, sanctions from the US, sanctions from EU, sanctions from ECOWAS, sanctions from AU. Why must it that they are mounting pressure for a coup which has taken place? What should be more important in the African context is, who are these coups representing? Is it the imperialists, or is it the civilian, or how will I put it, the masses? Let me put it this way. The population, the people who make up that country, the majority. So these are the things that we needed to verify. These are the things that AU, ECOWAS needed to look into. Because so far, the $700 million that was suspended as aid in Sudan is only because the current coup right now seems to have altered the plan in place. I remember when this transitional government was set in place, the Sudanese went out on the street and began agitating because the government began its, how will I call it, its re-emergence by adopting loans from the World Bank, debt cancellation from Paris Club, debt cancellation from the World Bank and the IMF, and for many other Western organizations that Sudan was placed under sanction. So all those debts were cancelled. That simply means that they had built in a government which was going to comply with their own existing treaties and business arrangements in Africa or in Sudan. And now when a coup comes into place, we seem to have altered that vital plan that gives the US, that gives the UN or the Britain or Norway or the European Union the voice to have control over Sudan. They support such governments. That's why America was sending $700 million, which is virtually nothing, as a matter of fact, compared to what they have been exploiting, not only in Sudan alone, but in many other places in Africa. So what we are saying here is that Africans need to get to that point to understand that democracy will never advance the cause of African leadership. It is the birth of our division, tribalism, nepotism, civil conflicts. I mean, a power monger where people want to grip to power, party politics and all of those things. It has now become a game of chance, because when you go into the polls, even if we say that we want to reduce democracy on two parties, like the Republicans and Democrats, it still offers room for a gamble, because it does not mean that if the majority votes, it still does not mean that the majority are right. Under such context, if you go in certain societies like in America where the LGBT seem to populate, for example, so we cannot say that the majority have decided a government which does not advance the cause of a nation, does not build or accelerate a development of a moral society. All of these things we need to put into consideration. And that is why we believe that democracy has always been a game of chance and has not been in the favor of our people. 42 million people or 43 million people in Sudan, 22 political existing parties. So you are telling us that if 5 million gather behind one party and they become the majority and they go in for an election, and then 5 million in a party wins that election. So are they trying to convince us that the 5 million has now become the majority of 42 million people? That is what I call taking the power of the people, giving the people the impression that they are in charge of their own destiny and they can decide their own future. And then you cause them to come into divided minority groups, whereby the power of the masses have been dissolved. We are no longer seeing the masses, we are seeing the minority groups. And that is why we are saying that democracy in Africa cannot emerge. And that's why I keep saying that it is the rule of the minority over the majority. So what is happening in Sudan, to me, I think that AU has disappointed the Africans. As a matter of fact, was never built by Africans, like some people are saying that it is because the African nations do not support AU. The African nation did not even build AU. AU was emerged in 2002 to safeguard the interests of the UN, the EU in Africa as far as terrorism was concerned globally. They put in the AU here to monitor and to safeguard their interests after the September 11, 2001 bombing of the World Trade Center. That was when Thabo Mbeki in 2002 single-handedly, who was the last chairman of the OAU, which was an organization that was brought in by the diaspora. And the OAU was never created by the Pan-African founding fathers in Africa. Were created by the founding fathers of Africans who were in the diaspora. So they brought in AU in Africa so that it gives Africa a sense where both the Africans who are in the diaspora and the Africans who are at home feel a part of Africa. And Thabo Mbeki changed that from OAU to AU without the consultation, without no vote of any African, put it that way, where you are seeking the consensus of other people. So what we are saying here is that is why the AU has been heavily funded by the West. Because if you have a project and you have a business you want to set up, you should first have been able to create a budget to support your plan and to support your business. But when you have a business where it is another man who has to generate the income and the capital to run the business which you claim it's your business, that only tells you that you are a manager, you are an employee of that structure. It is not a structure that you invented because you don't have the resources to support it. So it's not the issue about that the African member state cannot support AU. How much is Africa paying as colonial tax to the colonialists every year? The amounts are in trillions. We cannot go to that. how much does the multinational exploit in Africa. The amount in daily goes in trillions. There's no joke about this. In Ethiopia, in Mozambique, in Congo DRC, in Cameroon, in Chad, Central Africa, everywhere the multinationals are sucking. When a man takes his burden, all his burden, and puts on another man whose burden is bigger than his own, that's what I call slavery. What the West is doing in Africa, they are putting all their burden on Africa. That simply means that we are the one doing everything for them. As a matter of fact, that is what it is, because it makes no sense to find governments of the West until EU today has presented itself as a continent. The European Union has surfaced today as a continent, not as nations anymore. You have the entire EU in Africa sitting in AU. You have the UN in Africa. You have the US, France, Russia, India, everybody. As a matter of fact, like I keep saying, that Israel could have never become what it is if it did not spring out of Africa.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, if any nation in this world wants to do well and want to excel, you need to come from Africa. That's why all of them are in Africa. It does not give opportunity anymore for Africa. So where is the democracy that they're talking about? Where is the human rights organization that has not given the Africans the right which they are fighting for?
Okay, so let's dive back into this issue. New developments are coming up from Sudan daily, and this time around we have ousted Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, who is asking for his government to be reinstated. And now the government's whereabouts, or the cabinet's whereabouts, is uncertain or is unknown to the people of Sudan. How is this going to take place? Do you think Hamdok will push forth this agenda and ask forcefully for General Al-Burhan to reinstate his government to civilian rule?
Well, just like I keep saying, all of this hustle and tussle is in the hands of 3.3%. That's just the most challenging part. That means 96.5% are inactive. So in Sudan, the 35 years old are still in their parents' homes. The 40 years old, are they still in their parents' home? Because I don't understand when they say Africa is 60 years old. So that means that we were born. Who gave birth to us? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. How can Africa be reborn that we are judging the age of Africa and saying Sudan, whether it's 56 years or it's 50 years or Africa is 60 years? So are they telling us that a man of 55 years or 50 years is still a child? So these are the things that I keep asking myself, that when Thomas Sankara got into power, he was 35 years old when he took charge. Mamadi is 41. Assimi Goïta is about the same age group. What is the problem that 65 and 77 years old and 61 years old are fighting power? Where are the masses? My problem here is not those old people. My problem here is not the leadership and it's not the government. My problem is the masses. The masses have failed. Because when your father becomes old and age, it is in your duty automatically to assume responsibility on the behalf of the family. I don't know if you understand me. So, yeah, the masses are not doing anything. They have allowed their future, their destinies to be decided by people who got no future. Life is value, and that value is judged by age. A man who has 50 years has a lot to do for his nation and have a lot to give to his nation. That is why sacrificial lambs must be of an even age, between 30 to 35 and 40. We assume that you have enough to give to your people. But when a man is at 61, 77, and he's talking of Africans emergent in 2063, by then he will not be living. How do you set a plan in place when you will not be living? Allow those, like I keep saying, that a good sign of leadership or a successful sign of leadership is leading from behind. We needed these, our leaders, these our fathers, to have brought up their nation in such a way that even if tomorrow they are not there, the young ones can run the country as though they were still there. But when you have leadership that is controlled at the level of the UN, at the level of the United Nations, it becomes a very huge challenge. And that's what is happening today in Sudan. If now they are asking the current coup leader to reinstate back the government of Hamdok, anything can happen, but this does not guarantee the future of the people. That is just a simple truth. What guarantees the masses? We are talking here of 96.5% of the population. That population is not consulted. Only 3.3 are being discussed with France, with UN, with Norway, America, and Britain. Is that not an abuse of democracy? How do you leave 96.5% of a population and then you choose to discuss with 3.3? And then you are telling us that democracy is by the people and for the people. Allow the civilians, those people, like I keep saying, even we do not need civilians in Africa. Civilians are those who are not in the police force. They are not in the political arena. In other words, they have nothing to offer. What we need in Africa, we need armed young men and women who are ready to give their best to build their nation. People who are involved in decision making. People who have realized that if they do not step up, the generations coming behind them are equally going to fail. That simply means that what decisions we are going to take today is going to matter what is going to happen tomorrow. So we have a greater responsibility in this generation to pave a way for the next generation that is coming. So we cannot sit down and allow men who should have been in retirement guiding from behind.
Talking about the masses taking over and people rebuilding their country. But we're definitely aware that for change to happen, there's several other ways through which the grievances can be heard and solutions brought to solve the people's grievances. We have the ballots, for example. Elections are going to be taking place in Sudan in 2023. After Omar al-Bashir's ousting, we have a transitional government that was put in place for elections. So elections are coming up, and definitely if people need their voices to be heard, they can as well use the ballot to express themselves for them to have a taste of leadership, for example.
Yes, that is the deception behind democracy. I pray that God really helps me to really bring out the intricacy behind democracy. You see, if you want to get a very clear view and picture of democracy, as a matter of fact, the word democracy from the Greek word comes by demos and kratos. In English, we have joined the two words together, so we feel that the two words mean the same thing. It doesn't mean the same. Kratos simply means the people have the power, and then demos means the God controls the people. So that means that they give you the impression that the majority have the power to decide their own future, when yet it is the minority that tends to use the majority in supporting their agenda. That is to say that the minority, like, let me put it this way, what is the explanation that a 15%, which seem very harmless, seem very innocent, controls 85% of the people? That is where the question is. Because if you look to get a clear picture of what I'm trying to state here, look at the level of the UN National Security Council. Since 1945, we are talking of 5 veto members. They are permanent, no elections. Their human rights don't complain about democracy being abused. Those 5 members control the decision of the non-permanent 10 members. And their decisions are the ones that influences the whole world since 1945. Now that is the principle of the minority controlling the majority. And this same principle, they do it down, especially in Africa and in the world, by building repressive governments that impose their will on the people. To say it more easier for you to understand, this is how it is. It's like a man who needs you. For a man to bear the risk and grow on your back, that means the man has to find the best way for you to bend down in order for him to grow on your back. That simply means that the man has no other option except to grow on your back. Which means that the power is not with the 15% or with the minority. The power truly is with the majority. But the minority has to use a strategy in taking the power of the people and using it for their own advantage. Whereby the people always think that they are going out to exercise their right, not knowing that they are only going out to help the minority to achieve their goal. And that is the plan which is set up in place. And that is why I've been explaining that the day the masses will rise up the minority which have been growing on the back. It takes a huge risk for you to build your life on the back of somebody, knowing that the day the person rises up, you are going to fall down. And that is how the rule of democracy is. You give the people the impression. Let me give you a good example. Take a good look at America. America has two parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. Then it also have what they call the Electoral College. It doesn't matter the population that militates behind these two groups of people, the majority, the Electoral College has to still sit down and then appoint who is going to be the president in America. Did you see that? That means that whether the votes of the majority it correlates or not, the decision of the Electoral College is what stands. So that means that the people who go out to vote are not the people who decide the president. The same thing in China. You have 2,980 individuals who appoint the president in China. So look at Russia. How long has Putin been in power? Look at the United Kingdom. So at the end of the day, why do you really want to believe that it is when we go out to make our voices be heard on the ballot box, when those who push democracy in Africa by themselves do not practice it? Does it not ring a bell? In 2000, George Bush stole 450,000 votes. The matter went to court, yet the Electoral College still appoints George Bush to be the president in America. That is America they call the super world power that has been chased like a small dog in Afghanistan. They are the one talking about democracy in Sudan, calling for an election in 2023 for the people to go out and vote what? Under how many political parties? Why can they not also build a one-party system? We don't need parties. As a matter of fact, America projected parties here, but the Electoral College still decides who is going to be the president in America. So this should ring a bell in our head to understand that if at the level of the UN National Security Council, democracy is not practiced, why must it be practiced in Africa? In Asia, Asia does not use democracy. Asia uses sultans, kings. They have empires there. And we are talking about democracy since 60 years, my dear. We are in partnership with the West since 60 years. Africa is heavily underdeveloped. And then we are saying that we are practicing democracy. So the rights of the people are being taken away as far as what we call the multipartism exists in Africa. It creates tribalism, it creates civil conflict, it creates power monger and all of those things. We need to end this rubbish of democracy in Africa. When the Mamadi took over power, permit me to cite you this example. They should not call for elections. That is what we want to do to get the African population to understand that the ballot box is not a solution. We are in a country where ever since we have been going on the ballot box, the one person has always been voted. Yet the population still agitates that they don't want him. What really happens in those ballot boxes? What myth happens there that you go out to choose somebody and your selection is not the selection of everybody because there are many other rivals, and then you expect such a government to come in power to represent the majority? It's impossible because he came from a minority group. And that is why I further cited that people like Mamadi, Assimi Goïta, Thomas Sankara, they have more heavily respected and honored than people like Buhari, Nana Addo, all these. We don't want democratically elected presidents in Africa. We want Pan-Africanists, people who have interest in Africa, people who have interest in harmonizing Africa. We are tired of all these games, democracy, bringing in leaders who come there to serve their party politics, keep the existing treaties of the colonial. Is that not what is happening in South Africa as well? Thabo Mbeki, Mandela in 1994 came with a party. They are fighting that ANC should be in power for the rest till Jesus comes. All the presidents that ANC has ever emerged, none has ever given the people their rights in South Africa. So we don't want democracy. It's our generation. This is very important. We decide. And that is why I feel that if we are able to increase the volume of the understanding of these masses so that they get to understand that we must not build leadership up there over systems that we did not create. Let us learn to build leadership from grassroots, like you plant a seed and you begin to water. We all grow together. That's how people like Magufuli came. That's how people like Sankara came. That's how people like Mamadi are coming. Why is this pressure of election, the same place the people are coming from. A democratic government that was ousted out, that did not meet the demands of the people, and then you are sending them back again to an election. It's just like a man leaving a frying processor and entering fire. Allow them to master themselves and choose if truly they want to allow the freedom of expression, freedom of speech. Let the people decide what they want. Okay. This is very important.
It's quite an ironic situation in Sudan. We are talking about a country which was under military rule for over 65 years. And now another military coup is taking place in the country, ousting the transitional government that was supposed to accompany the country to next elections. The people have been rioting since October 25, and riots so far have caused a lot of damages, lives have been lost, and a lot of people are injured. We're talking about people who do not support a regime which is taking over they do not support the military coup. So is this contradictory? The percentage you're talking about people here who are supposed to be given the rights to choose what they want for their country, but now they are condemning the military coup in Sudan.
Yes, this you have asked a very good question, and that is why I believe that Africa has been so destabilized in ways of information, in ways of education, in ways of belief and understanding things. To be honest, the Sudanese themselves don't even know what they want. That's just a simple truth. A lot of majority Africans don't even know what to even do. What they do is what they have been told to do. That's why many of them fight to keep it. It's like they give you an independence and then you are fighting your own brother to keep what the imperialists gave you. These are many of the civil conflicts we're having today in Africa. Same like the one we have in Cameroon, the Northwest and Southwest. What are they fighting? They are fighting what the colonialists gave to them. So the Africans have a problem of understanding. And that is why I keep saying that for us to grow and for us to emerge out of this level of ignorance, we need to seek solidarity with the Africans in the diaspora. Those are very enlightened. Those are the ones that when we build this alliance, we will succeed in Africa, because as a matter of fact, nobody who has lived in the West does not know the imperialists. That's why I can speak the way I speak, because I've mastered them very well. So people have lived with them. I know how every function, how the system works. I understand all those things. And that's why I'm able to see what they don't see. The African people need a time and the kind of education that is going to increase their understanding, to understand what truly is happening in Africa. Because if you ask the people who are going out to agitate, what are they agitating? Because they want to go back to the ballot box. That's where they want to go, because they feel that they are going to express themselves on the ballot box, but they don't see the trap set for those ballot box. Ask them, are they going out as one man? The answer is no. They are going out under 22 different political groups. So if, for example, 4 million becomes the majority, so we are saying now that out of 42 million people, 4 million now become the majority. That's what democracy is telling us. That's what they don't understand. So for example, when you were born, did your father ask you what name should they give you? We need leaders who know what is good for their people. That's what is happening in China. The man knows what is good for Chinese. As a matter of fact, to go now to China is easier than to go to the moon, because they have built security against COVID. Just to enter China alone and then see your family is easier to go to the moon than to enter. So we need this kind of leaders, and that's why Africa has always believed in. Why did people like Sankara do well? Today we still speak of their legacy. Gaddafi, Libya is crying Gaddafi today, but what did the NATO want? What did NATO want in Libya? What did the UN want in Libya? They wanted Libya to be a democratic government so that they can always influence the politics, always influence the leadership there. And this is the same thing I'm telling you, that the role of the AU has failed and has collapsed heavily. As a matter of fact, it should be suspended and eradicated as a body that never existed in Africa. Because for AU to have misrepresented its duty and its responsibility in Africa, let me give you a brief picture of what AU was supposed to do. It was to decolonize Africa and then welder all the 55 nations in Africa, so that Africans in the diaspora can find a home in Africa. What you see these imperialists doing is that they have created a wall, like the Berlin Wall, where the Africans in the diaspora have no contact with Africa. And then the Africans at home are heavily abused and exploited, so no one can come to the rescue of each other. But we must be the one to break down that wall, because they create, and that's why you realize that the first thing they did was separating Africans from Africa. And then they went down further in 1884 by now breaking down the continent into what I call minority groups. And these are the minority groups that have taken away the power of Africa. That's why Africa today is like somebody who does not have a voice, because each of these nations, when it was a period of their rebirth, to become a president and to run a government, you need to abide by their existing treaties in order for you to manage a government in Africa. And that's why I spoke about leadership in leadership, against leadership. Against leadership, we are the ones who are against the leadership. The leadership in leadership is our government that is under the leadership of the UN. So we cannot, as a matter of fact, in our generation, like I said before, if the imperialists are going to succeed with our fathers, our grandfathers, they are not going to succeed with us. That's just the simple truth. Because all what the 3.3% are doing, we are not bothered about it. We don't worry about it. We will not fail in our own responsibility. Our own responsibility is to quicken and give the right information and knowledge to the masses. The day the masses will rise up in Africa, the diasporans will come back. That's the simple truth. So we need to build that alliance, because, like I said, it's going to take Africans to build Africa. And a man moving with one leg cannot run well and cannot walk well. So that's why Africa keeps calling out for help in the West, but forgetting that there are Africans out there that have the resources, the capacity, the speed, the energy, and the manpower to build Africa. If we are talking of investors, we got investors in the diaspora that can heavily change Africa in the next 1 year, if only we seek alliance. Africa has resources. What is the multinationals doing here? They're only looting out the resources. That's what they do here. That's what their foreign policy says.
Okay, so the military, there's already a takeover in Sudan. The military has taken over, and so far they are facing a lot of repression from the international community and as well the populace of Sudan. So how do you think they're going to achieve their aim with so much criticisms?
That's a good question again, because that's where the leadership becomes very difficult. Because you don't even know who is for and who is against, because there are pressures coming from all over. Why the UN is condemning, AU is also condemning, ECOWAS. So at one point, they have frustrated even the man had a good plan. And this is the whole agenda. Trying to put you on a point where you become confused, and then you present yourself in front of the people, in front of your people, like a useless man. And as a matter of fact, nobody can even see the good in you. That's what they use the media in tarnishing the reputation of a good man. How do you tell me? We saw here with Magufuli, Paul Kagame, Gaddafi, majority of them, including P.L. Lumumba, Sankara, all of them were termed dictators. What is the problem? When Africans are using dictators to build Africa, Mama, we don't need democracy. Africa is very underdeveloped. What we need armed young men and women who are ready to build. We don't need civilians. Civilians are good in a civilized society. We are not civilized. We are not developed. Democracy is good in a developed society. We are underdeveloped. Let us also use wicked dictators who are not going to they are not going to welcome the powers of the imperialists in Africa, who are going to project the African power, project the African way, and build societies for Africans. This is very important. So we are tired of this issue of the West always having to say something in Africa. And we have to also understand that the military in every nation is there to mediate the state and the masses. In the event where the state is not playing by the rules to meet the demands of its own society, it's the duty for the military to rise up, because it now becomes a state of emergency. It's a role for the military to rise up and take over power and allow transition whereby the masses can decide another way forward. So for the military to take over power, there should have been no pressure coming from any angle. As a matter of fact, like I said, it should have been, if this military is for the interest of who cares about the Sudanese? We are talking of 42 million people. Who really cares about them? They are talking about the 3.3%, but the Sudanese are living under abject poverty. oil that was recently discovered by the Americans in Sudan rated that greater than that of Saudi Arabia. I keep asking the question, what really are they doing in Africa if not for the natural resources? These are the same people that enslaved Africa. These are the same people that gave independence to Africa in the 60s. Things you don't give to somebody, you give it to somebody. That's an abuse. And yet Africa is still, you see,
So definitely we're talking about this issue, which is a disturbing one. So in probably weeks ahead, what future lies ahead for Sudan and Sudanese as a whole?
AU should have helped. But now that AU is not there, ECOWAS is not there, that has left Sudan in a more critical condition, because no one seemed to help the other. Everybody is confused.
Nobody is ready to come to the dialogue table.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the problem even it still comes back to us. For there's just no way I would allow my future, my destiny be decided by somebody who has already lived his life. It's impossible. Out of no respect, I will respect you, but I'll make you to understand that I can take charge of myself and I can decide what is good for me and know what is good for me. I'll uphold all the moral values, but I need to be able to decide my own future. But for a population of 96.5%, like I told you already, 41.5% is below 15 years. Can you not see that there's already an existing problem? We just need somebody like Sankara, Magufuli, Gaddafi, whether there is through a coup, because they don't come through elections. Hardly we get, when they come through election, the imperialists assassinate them immediately. That's what we see in Africa. The ones that live long know that there's always an existing arrangement in Africa. That's why the Africans don't get the West benefit, but the Africans don't get. Why must Africans, I keep saying, young men, young women in Africa, Africans are suffering. Judging to what they have in Africa, they should not suffer. As a matter of fact, I used to say that even if we're only these are leaders that were corrupt, even what falls on the ground will still make all Africans rich. You cannot be corrupt in such a way that even your neighbor does not eat. But the one today in Africa is the one where we have a whole bulldozer of the veto members in Africa. They have brought in China to help them fast accelerate the looting in Africa, where even the little that is remaining, when our leaders also embezzle, nothing even falls down for the common man to even survive. So I end up by saying that the day the multinationals will leave Africa by Africans chasing them away, light and breeze, fresh air will return back to Africa. But as long as the multinationals are in Africa, they will continue to build their world using voluntary slaves, people who run out of Africa due to poverty, hardship, bad leadership, corruption, and then they go to what they call greener pasture to go and help now the imperialists to build what he has taken from your country. If Africans get to this understanding and understand that those areas which they call greener pasture are not what it seems, what glitters in the eye is not all gold. Haitians, like I cited, are in the borders of US, Canada, and all of that. Africans are running through desert and all of that. But why their governments are in Africa? It's like you are visiting a man who is in your house. That you left your own house to visit a man who is not at home. It's in your own house that you left. That is a paradox today in Africa. So you go there and help them build what they took from you.
It's definitely a developing issue in Sudan, and we will be bringing you more information coming to you from that growing part of Africa. Thank you very much, Mr. Ateme Baku, for being part of this program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of this second weekly delivery of Views on the Continent. The program comes up tomorrow, same time, same channel, but this time around you will be in the company of Louise Bidben. As from the entire production team and I, thanks for watching, and stay tuned to more programs on Afrique Media.
Good day and good day to all the viewers of our free media. Thank you, Tunisia. Thank you for what you are doing. Good day and good day to all the viewers of our free media. Thank you, Tunisia. Thank you for what you are doing. Good day and good day to all the viewers of our free media. Thank you, Tunisia.